The president's point person on health care reform is demanding an investigation into her own website launch. This is Special Report. Good evening, I'm Brett Baer. In the midst of his disastrous health care overhaul rollout, President Obama is setting records, but not the kind he wanted. The president's poll numbers are going historically low as we learn more tonight about the glitch-filled Obamacare website from his point person at HHS, who spent the day on the congressional hot seat. We have Fox team coverage tonight. Ed Henry's at the White House with the increasingly heavy political price the president is paying. But we begin with Chief Congressional Correspondent Mike Emanuel and a tough day at the office for Kathleen Sebelius. Good evening, Mike.
Brett, good evening. Secretary Sebelius was on the hot seat for about 2.5 hours, asked about promises made, the price tag, and if she has regrets.
I've asked our Inspector General, Dan Levinson, to investigate the development of healthcare.gov, including contractor acquisition, the overall management of the project, and performance and payment of our contractors.
And it appears we're having some technical difficulties. Bottom line, she was up here, asked a variety of questions about the difficult rollout of the Obamacare website. She did her best to try to explain what they've done to correct it, to speed up the process. She heralded new numbers, said that there will be an investigation into what went wrong with the initial rollout of healthcare.gov. A lot of Republicans were not satisfied with her answers. Some Democrats obviously stuck up for the secretary, Brett.
Mike, the hearing went back and forth. The numbers she had, $677 million were allotted, but she said there were only $319 million spent so far. Some questions, eyebrows raised about that financing.
Definitely about that, and also about the numbers in terms of the people who are registered at this point. She said just shy of 365,000 people have selected a plan. But bottom line, some Republicans said, well, if you're really buying something, doesn't that involve actual money, a money transaction payment? And so obviously they disagreed with her assessment about whether people have actually selected something or they've actually made and concluded a purchase. But bottom line, to make the goal of 7 million people by the end of March, the administration needs to pick up the pace substantially in terms of getting people to register. Some 50,000 or so a day on average needs to be the number in order to make that goal by the end of March.
Yeah, they're about 3 million short of where the administration expected to be by the end of the year. In the meantime, there's a new flare-up in the U.S. Senate, Mike, over presidential nominees. What can you tell us about that?
Well, that's right. You recall, obviously, the back and forth in the Senate between Harry Reid and Mitch McConnell, the top two leaders. Reid changed the rules for nominations, which obviously angered the Republicans, taking away the 60-vote threshold and making it a simple majority. And so Reid this week is trying to move through 10 nominees, some judges and other officials. Republicans still have the ability to slow down the clock a bit to eat some time. That has angered Reid, and so he is threatening that they may have an all-nighter tonight, and he may keep the Senate here through the weekend to get through these 10 nominees, Brett.
Okay, could be a long weekend for the Senate. Mike, thank you.
Thank you.
Damage control from the health care debacle is job one for the administration tonight. Chief White House correspondent Ed Henry tells us there's plenty of damage to control.
President Obama returned to the White House in the early hours after the long flight home from Nelson Mandela's memorial service and was immediately hit with a batch of new polls suggesting his credibility has taken a blow from the botched health care rollout.
The president was not truthful with the American people, and that's why a majority of Americans believe that the president is not honest in dealing with them, which is why his popularity continues to drop.
The evidence is stark, with the new Wall Street Journal NBC News poll showing an erosion in his honesty and leadership abilities, as his disapproval rating hit an all-time high in the Journal poll, 54%, while his approval slipped to 43%. 50% said the health care law is a bad idea. 34% said it's a good idea.
So what we're focused on right now is the president's core priorities related to expanding economic opportunity for the middle class. And if we can make progress in those priorities, the poll numbers are going to take care of themselves.
Except the president's aides are now facing new questions about whether consumers who have enrolled by the deadline of December 23rd will actually have insurance on January 1st. Health and Human Services Secretary Kathleen Sebelius was confronted today with the fact that a key tech advisor, Henry Chow, recently testified that most of the back-end systems to make sure insurance companies get paid are way behind.
Could you tell us what's being done to try to get that ready by January the 1st, since almost half the system, according to Mr. Chow, hadn't even been built yet?
The financial management system, which is getting the insurance companies their money for accelerated tax credits and for cost sharing, is due to go into effect in mid-January.
With that system not completely ready until at least mid-January, White House spokesman Josh Earnest initially would only say that consumers will be in a position to get insurance if they sign up by the deadline.
But you can't guarantee it.
No, we are confident that by December 23rd, we'll have ironed out these problems.
So they're confident, at least, that people will have insurance on January 1st. But Republicans were noting today that if you count up the people who have gotten cancellation notices, which is in the millions, compared to the 1.2 million so far who have enrolled, it appears, at least on the surface, that more people have temporarily, anyway, lost their insurance than have gained, Brett.
Yeah, and the important thing is they have to pay the premium. It's not just the enrollment. They have to actually make a payment.
That's right. And if the systems are not ready yet and they're still not confident that they're completely ready on the back end to actually process those payments, there could be an issue right around Christmas, New Year's.
Okay. Ed Henry live on the North Lawn. Ed, thank you.
Good to see you.
Senate staff members are being urged to confirm their Obamacare enrollments in person and not to trust what they see on the website. An email sent today warns against assuming that coverage has been granted. Staffers have until next Monday to sign up. House Speaker John Boehner today blasted conservative critics of the new budget deal, which also is taking fire from the other side of the political aisle. Tonight, Chief Political Correspondent Carl Cameron on reaction to an agreement that is getting some vocal bipartisan disapproval, but quiet and grudging approval from the rank and file.
Republican House Budget Committee Chairman Paul Ryan and GOP leaders acknowledge the bipartisan two-year budget blueprint falls short of conservative goals, but they call it necessary to end years of budget gridlock and shutdown battles.
We've got to find a way to make this divided government work. We think it's in our nation's interest to do that.
Backed by the administration, the two-year plan sets spending levels at a little over $1 trillion each year. It alleviates $63 billion in automatic spending cuts mandated for next year by the Budget Control Act. It does not raise taxes, but increases fees on air travel and other things. It would reduce the deficit $85 billion over the next 10 years, according to the Congressional Budget Office. In the Senate, conservatives, including potential presidential candidates, were quick to pan the deal. GOP foes across the Capitol cast the absence of serious spending cuts and entitlement reform as more taxing and spending.
It's going to raise taxes and fees, and it's not going to address the long-term overspending problem in Washington, which is we need to reform entitlements.
Conservative super PACs have been twisting GOP arms to oppose the plan. House Speaker John Boehner fired a missile at them.
They're using our members and they're using the American people for their own goals. This is ridiculous. Listen, if you're for more deficit reduction, you're for this agreement.
Speaker Boehner trying to brush back conservative angst, knowing a majority of Republicans truly want to avoid another shutdown fiasco. Democrats are equally divided and disturbed by the last-minute deal. They wanted to extend unemployment benefits, close corporate tax loopholes, and increase domestic spending. The leadership is not whipping up support.
The way the agreement was taking shape would absolutely not be acceptable to members of the Democratic caucus. It's now in a form where members of our caucus will have to decide for themselves.
I don't know where that will come down because, as you know, our budget that Mr. Van Hollen and our conferees were putting forth was quite different.
Senate Democratic leader Harry Reid supports the plan. Republican leader Mitch McConnell, who helped craft the Budget Control Act and its automatic cuts, has signaled his opposition to the compromise, but may wait to see what the House passes before definitively saying so. House and Senate votes are expected by week's end. They've already given up on a farm bill this year, so after just 2 days of consideration, this budget framework will be the last big vote before they race out of town for the holidays. When they return, they'll be facing whatever consequences there may be in a new election year, Brett.
They've done the head counting.
Oh, yeah, they think they're going to pass it, but they know it's going to be a squeaker, and you never know with these things. They've been upended at the last minute a lot in the last year and a half.
All right, Carl, thank you. Make sure to stick around as Georgia Republican Congressman Tom Price joins our all-star panel in the center seat in just a bit. He's the vice chairman of the House Budget Committee and an orthopedic surgeon. He'll talk about his alternative plan to Obamacare as well as the budget deal. Do you have something to ask the panel or Congressman Price? Let me know on Facebook.com/BrettBairSR or on Twitter @BrettBair. You can use the hashtag Special Report. Wall Street apparently does not seem impressed with the new budget deal. The Dow plunged 130 points today. The S&P 500 lost 20. The Nasdaq fell 57. Up next, the head of the NSA digs in his heels to defend the agency's surveillance tactics. But first, here's what some of our Fox affiliates across the country are covering tonight. KDVR in Denver on a 6-year-old boy suspended from school for sexual harassment in the form of kissing a girl on the cheek and the hand. A school official defends the action, saying the girl wanted the boy to knock it off. KTVU in Oakland on the NTSB report about last summer's crash of an Asiana Airlines flight in San Francisco. The pilot was trained to be a captain and told investigators he was very concerned about attempting a visual approach without the runway's instrument landing aids, which were out of service because of construction. And this is a live look at Atlanta from Fox 5. You can't really see much, but it is Atlanta. The big story there tonight is the latest twist in the case of a high schooler found dead inside a wrestling mat. The family wants an investigation into the funeral home, saying the boy's organs were missing and his body stuffed with newspaper. That's tonight's live look outside the Beltway from Special Report. We'll be right back.